Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mukbang Monday. I'm really excited about today's meal. In case you couldn't already tell, we're having some sushi and some spring rolls or summer rolls. This I did not make myself. This I got from my local supermarket. I'm filming this on a Saturday. It's a beautiful Saturday. The sun's out. It's going to get up to 66. I'm filming this in April, by the way, but you probably won't see it for a couple weeks. And on Saturdays, usually after I've prep cooked for the week, Saturdays I'm almost out of food, so I'll grab a quick bite before work somewhere. Today, though, I had to go to the grocery store anyway, so I thought I'd pick myself up some pre-made vegetable sushi. And this has white rice on the outside with the nori seaweed filled with avocado and carrots. And then this is the spring roll. Now, I've had this before, but I've never tried their spring roll that they do. And it's got a spring/summer roll rice paper on the outside. It's filled with cucumber, carrots, avocado, and seaweed salad. I think it'll be super yummy. I can't wait. I meant to film a little overhead shot, but I'll just sort of show you. Here's the vegetable sushi. And here is the spring rolls, summer rolls. Now, they obviously came in these little, and this isn't even all of it. There's still more. It's so much food. I probably won't even eat all this because it can get very filling very quick. But it came in these little trays, of course. But one thing I love about filming these eating show videos is that normally I'll just eat something right out of a container. Honestly, I'll heat up food in a pot and then I'll just eat it right out of the pot to save myself from washing dishes. So even though I am using more plates than I normally would, it'll be a little more cleanup time. I think the presentation's really nice, and there's a YouTuber that I follow, and she mentions that if you have the time to set up the food really nice like you would see in a restaurant, or if you were, doing food photography, because it's just nice for yourself. It sort of makes the experience a little better. So I'm excited about that. I also have this little guy here. Now, it came with a little soy sauce packet, of course, but I brought some of my own, just in case there's not enough. And then this one, these rolls came with a little side of sauce, but there's no ingredients for this. I don't really know what's in here. It looks like a sweet chili sauce, but who knows if they make it in-house, if it's from a brand. It could have, anchovies or fish paste. So better be safe than sorry. I have my own sweet chili sauce. This is so processed, and it's mostly corn syrup, right? Sugar, water, cornstarch. But let's see, is it still good? Yeah, it's still good. I've had this for a while in my fridge. So I figured I could have a little bit of that. Of course, I only brought one dipping container, so we'll see how that goes. I might just dip this in soy sauce and call it a day. And last but not least, our tasty beverage today is this Teas Organic Unsweetened Black Tea. Now, what I really wanted was either some oolong tea from last week's episode or some unsweetened iced green tea, but my store didn't have any of that. So I think this black tea will still be really nice. And we'll pour it in our infamous spooky glass. So, I know that was a very long intro for this video, but I just want to show off all the food that we have here today. Also, one day I hope to figure out how to get the mic in front of me. I can't because I'm sitting cross-legged. There's no room to put the mic, so I'm not always awkwardly leaning this way to talk into the mic, but until we get there, this is our setup. Let's pour our tea. It says rich and subtle. It looks very dark. Sip. Ooh, it's very strong. It's weird, I'm drinking it expecting green tea or oolong, and it's totally different, but it's very good. So of course this comes with a little bit of ginger, which is always tasty. I don't know if anyone else does this. I know the ginger is meant, I believe, you like suck on it. You don't even eat it in between trying different rolls to like cleanse your palate. But I like to put it right into my little soy sauce container with a little bit of wasabi. I think just a little pinch. And some people will just put the ginger on top of the sushi with the wasabi. I think that's tasty too, but today I'm just going to wipe off any extra wasabi. I like to just mix my ginger and wasabi with my soy sauce to make a little fun sauce. I love sushi. I mean, I've always loved it, but I've recently gotten really into it again. So we'll just start with like a little bit of dipping sauce and we'll add more soy sauce as we move on. Oh boy, we need to get to eating and get to story time. I've wasted a lot of time, so bear with me 1 second. So let's do our first bite and then we'll get into the story time. Just dip it into my soy sauce mix. And I always tap the excess off on my other sushi pieces. It's so good. Okay, so last week was kind of a darker episode. It began with Alec, who's the worst, me going to his place in Hudson, having this really terrible experience that did affect me for many years, along with other things that happened in my life. But then he and I basically kind of stopped talking. I also talked about... Did I talk about John? No, I think we started with Alec in the last episode. He took up most of the story, but I think I also touched upon Apollo, who was someone I was talking to online before Alec and then after Alec. Oh, and by the way, after I filmed last week's episode, I was looking for photos that I might want to add on to the story. And so I went to my live journal. If you've ever had live journal, it's kind of like a blog of sorts. I've had mine since 2003. And I went to like 2005, 2006, and I started reading every entry, and I haven't done that in a long time. And I spent probably like a day and a half, like whenever I had free time, just going through and reading every single entry. And I was so cryptic in some of my blog posts or whatever you want to call it, that I myself didn't know what I was talking about. I was like, who was I talking about? But it also brought back memories of people I'd forgotten about. And hopefully it's going to help me now. It sort of refreshed my memory about some things that happened in college. So hopefully going forward, I won't be doing so much like, what happened? Or wait, when did this happen? Like the whole Rob thing, this was from like 2 videos ago. What happened was we started hooking up again, and I actually wrote him an email. That's what happened. I wrote him an email that said, I know that we're not like dating, but when we hook up and you don't kiss me on the mouth, it makes me feel like cheap, like I'm a prostitute or hired or something. And what happened was he just didn't reply to the email and stopped talking to me. No, like, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. No, like, we should stop hooking up then. Or, like, even if he didn't want to apologize, he could have been like, well, I don't feel that way. Let's still hook up. Or, I don't feel that way. Let's end this. He just didn't reply to the email and then ignored me. And we must have had class together. I think he must have just, like, stopped talking to me. And then, like, months later, he, like, tried to be friendly again. But that's actually how the Rob thing ended, according to my live journal. So we had ended off last week's episode with a pseudo cliffhanger where I was back. It was Thanksgiving break, and I was back in my hometown visiting my friends from high school. And one of my friends, Dylan, who used to have a crush on me way back in, like, middle school, he was there looking very mature and, you know, grown up and etc. And so we were flirting, and then we were left alone. Let's take a bite of food, and then we'll continue. I'm just going to try soy sauce for this and see how it tastes. It's really good. I probably made a weird face because seaweed always freaks me out. It tastes like fish, or like really fishy, but it's seaweed. Plus it said vegetarian on the label, so. Ooh, this is so delicious. I thought I wasn't going to eat it all, but I might eat it all. I wonder if I want sweet chili sauce. Maybe I'll try one bite with it. Ooh. So we're alone, we're making out. You can just imagine. It was sort of a weird experience in a way. Already it was a little bit surreal because I should mention in high school, my friends were very incestual in the sense that like we were a close-knit group of maybe like 10 people, and a lot of people hooked up with other people and dated. I never took part in any of that. I never dated any of my friends. I'm sure I had a crush on a couple of my friends, and I'm sure a couple of my friends had crushes on me, but we all used to like cuddle together and be affectionate and take naps together, boys and boys, girls and girls, like, you know, it didn't matter. I think besides like, you know, truth or dare or like spin the bottle, except we used to play spin the cell phone. We used to play weird games. You know, those were the only kisses I had with my friends. So it was kind of weird, like finally hooking up with someone in my friends group. So we make out, we go up to his room. His room he shares with his brother, but his brother wasn't there. And what happened? We start hooking up, and, you know, I take care of him, and I was pretty good at it at this point, or at least I felt like I was. He seemed pretty into it, pretty impressed. So he's done, he's good now. And then, I don't know why, in that moment, it's like I sobered up, even though I wasn't drunk, obviously. But he said, I'm not going to say word for word what he said, I don't need to get demonetized or flagged, but he basically implied, would you like me to take care of you now? But with a slightly more vulgar words. He didn't mean it vulgar, but the terminology he used, like, oh, would you like me to do this for you? And I was like, no. And it's not that I wasn't attracted to him or that, like, I didn't think it would be good. It was like all of a sudden it hit me like, oh my gosh, I just hooked up with one of my friends that I've been friends with forever. This is so weird. And I was like, oh no, I'm really tired actually. Like, can you take me home? So it was a fine experience. We aren't as close as we used to be because he started being a really bad friend to one of my other friends with our social group. So if I see him in person, I'll be very friendly, but I don't like keep in touch with him. But yeah, he drove me home. I don't know, we might have kissed goodbye, and I was like, cool, bye. Apparently, I guess I called my friends or texted my friends like the next morning or that night and was like, I hooked up with Dylan. And they were like, oh my God, that's crazy. That's so weird. And I basically told them, I was like, yeah, it wasn't a mistake, but like that, probably shouldn't have done that. I guess apparently he texted or called one of my girlfriends, again, we were all friends, the next day and was like, so me and Melissa hooked up, should I call her? Or I was like, I guess I'll call her. And my friend basically told him, like, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about it. So that was kind of like taken care of very neatly. He was like, okay. I don't think he was super disappointed. I don't think he had feelings for me. He probably thought like, oh, are we going to like hook up? Like, where's this going to go? Who knows what he thought. But luckily my friend was like a middleman and like he asked her for advice and I had already talked to her. So she's like, it's good. And it wasn't awkward after that. The next time I saw him for the next like break, we had winter break or whatever, it was fine. We were cool. So it all worked out fine. But that was just a fun, it's so weird. And to this day, like when I see him, I'm always like, we hooked up. That's so weird. I forget about that sometimes. Because I'd never hooked up with one of my friends from high school before. Okay, let's eat some more. I don't know what it is about vegetable sushi that's so delicious. It's like my favorite. All right, I've consulted my notes. Around this time, when I went back to school, so I was in an acting class with this guy. His name was actually Steven, but there was a lot of Stevens, and I knew a lot of Stevens, so I was like, I'm going to call you Stev. I literally would tell people, like, I'm going to call you a different name. I was such a diva weirdo. And they went along with it. They were like, yeah, fine. All right, let's have another summer roll. Okay, now I'm prepared. It's going to taste seaweedy. feel like I'm never prepared. So his name was Stev, or I called him Stev. And we were like a little flirty. When I first started class with him, I was still like dating someone, and he had a girlfriend, but I guess he had broken up with her. And then I was like sort of single. I don't know how it worked out because I don't view myself as a social person, but I was constantly meeting people, talking to people, and I just like I had a very open heart. I was very like receptive to meeting people and forming connections. So never felt like I was like officially truly single in college. So there definitely was some flirtation and attraction, but I guess no one made a move, or I don't really know why things didn't progress. But while this was going on, there was someone else named Steven, but everyone in the theater group, because in college, just like high school, there are cliques a little bit, and I'm sure you've experienced this if you went to college, especially an away college, where depending on your major, that was like who you hung out with or the crews you went with. I had 3 groups I hung out with. One of them was the theater kids, and this is how I met Susie. The other group was the Asian / Japanese study major, so I had some friends from there. And then there was also like the hipster kids, which had nothing to do with any of my majors. I just like was attracted to hipster boys and scenester boys, so I naturally hung out and like became part of that group, sort of. So anyway, I guess Susie thought I was cute. I don't know if he just told me directly or if he had a friend tell me. It felt very juvenile at the time. But we started hanging out. We didn't go on dates because you didn't really do that when you went to the same school and were on campus together. You just hung out. You met in the dining hall, or you met after rehearsal or after class. I didn't have any classes with Susie, but he was always around the theater group. So we started hanging out, and he expressed interest in me, and we would like hold hands. I remember there's actually a photo of us. It's probably still on Facebook, probably, of us like holding hands, me being all embarrassed. And he wasn't like a super good looking guy at all, but he was nice. Well, at the time I thought he was nice. He wasn't terrible, but like he also didn't handle things very well. We'd hold hands, we'd make out. We weren't official, but you know, there was something there. At the time, I still did sort of have feelings for Stev, but that kind of like, there's nothing to go there. I remember this one day, he got kind of upset at me because we were on break from class, from our acting class, and the way that the dorm or the building set up, there's like the bottom floor, like almost, and all the walls are glass, and then there's like the top floor, or like the outside, you can kind of peer down, almost like a garden, one of those like interior gardens. I'm not explaining it well. If I can find a photo, I'll try, but... And so Steph and I were just like messing around. I like chased after him, gave him this big hug behind him, and we were like hugging. And then I saw out of the corner of my eye that Susie was like up there. And I don't think Susie was watching me or saw me, but I got real nervous and like pushed him away. And like I remember Steph looking up and being like, "Oh, that like boy you're talking to is there." And he was really bummed, and then I felt bad because we tended to be affectionate in class together. Like we'd sit next to each other and kind of like our shoulders would touch. I don't know. Long story short, the Susie thing didn't work out. Eventually, he'd make out. He never really... Sometimes he'd like come over my dorm and stay, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to go back to my dorm. He never made like a full-on move on me, but I guess I didn't either. I don't know. But basically, I remember like a few weeks later me sending him a message and being like, oh, so this movie we're going to see, and he's like, actually, I'm going to bail on the movie. And I was like, okay, so do you want to get together next week? And he kind of, even though we weren't dating, sort of broke up with me, was like, no, I think we should just like not hang out. And I was like, that's out of nowhere, okay. And I was a little hurt, a little upset, because I did kind of like him, but I wasn't heartbroken. And part of me at the same time was thinking, okay, well now that's done, like, I can see what's happening with Steph, you know? I found out later, and this is why like I think Susie sucks, is because I found out later that the reason why he broke things off is because he felt like I was sort of a prude. And he couldn't have known what was going on, but like it was upsetting because of what had happened previously. So I guess he like wanted to like have sex or hook up or whatever. And I'm sure if we had been like alone at any point in a room and he made a move, I probably would have like let him. I would have let it happen because that was like story of college, just let it happen. But he couldn't have known, but this was right after Alec, where I felt very like violated and pushed to do things I wasn't happy with. So I liked Susie, and I thought, let me take it slow with him and not rush into a physical relationship, which I guess Susie was not having. So that was the end of Susie and I. And then we didn't talk. It was a little awkward. He started dating some girl, but I saw on my live journal that apparently he contacted me a couple months later and was like flirting with me and being like, "You're so cute," and like, "I saw you at this play." I don't know. It was weird. And I like flirted back with him, but nothing ever happened. And this was again months later. So Stev. So now I was just like, okay, I'm single now. Like, I'm officially single. There's nothing going on. And at the time, Stev was like still into me. I remember I sort of like somehow I told him that, I was like free to date or whatever. I don't know what I told him, but we had plans to watch a movie together at my dorm room and then go to a play together. And I remember us sitting side by side during acting class. And in acting class, you're actually acting. So you're in a theater. So it's not like you're in classroom seats. It's more casual. You can kind of like relax and sit back, and you can be close to someone. You can have your head on their shoulder if you want. I remember we were like kind of holding hands, but like hiding that we're holding hands. We like were like rubbing each other's backs with our hands. We're being very affectionate. And I was very excited, and he was too. I thought everything was great. Then fast forward to him coming over my dorm, and he was a little bit sick. I guess I didn't care that he was sick, or he was a little under the weather. No, I'm sorry, that wasn't it. He wasn't sick yet. He was maybe like starting to get sick. We watched Rent, his like favorite movie. I thought it was fine. And then towards the end of the movie, we like made out on my bed, whatever. And he seemed happy about it. I was happy about it too. But I did feel a little bit of distance. And then it turned out he was like, I guess transferring to a different college, so he wouldn't be, not like across the country, but he wouldn't be close by anymore. So I don't know if it was a combination of that or he just lost interest in me. But I remember like he had a cold and we had plans, and he's like, "Well, I'm not feeling good." And I was like, "Well, neither am I, but let's still get together. Let's get tea or coffee." Because I really liked him. We had kissed. I wanted to see him. I wanted to see what was going to happen between us. So we met up for coffee. And I basically asked him, like, what's going on? To his credit, he was very direct. He just was like, "I'm moving away. It's not going to work." And I was like, "But I really like you." And he's like, "Yeah, I thought I liked you, but I don't have any feelings for you." He wasn't that mean about it, but I remember it felt very cold in a way. And maybe that was just his way of just like shutting it down. But I couldn't fathom like what happened. Was it because he had to wait too long? Is it because of the stuff with Susie? To this day, like, I don't know. It was so long ago though, so who cares? But I remember really liking Stev and being very disappointed that like that just wasn't going to happen. That was over. So that was the end of Stev. We're approaching the midway mark, but I think we need to touch upon, I know the cliffhanger we're going to do. So this video is going to maybe be a little long because I really want to include my week of wildness, my party week, as one might call it. So let's take a bite of sushi, and then we're going to really get into it. I know I've been doing less eating, but there's just so much like stories to tell, and I feel like people are now watching for the stories, and I hate talking with my mouth full, so. These are fine. These are really good. So, I kind of wound up dating. None of them were official, except for one guy, but he was barely official. But I had like a month where I was sort of dating 3 guys, which sounds really bad, but This never happens again in my life. And I'm almost like proud of it in a weird way, because I'm not a very loose woman. I was never like going around sleeping with people left and right. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But this was like a very exciting, liberating time for me, I guess. And I never had an experience like this again. But there was one week, or even like a weekend, it was like a 5-day period where I wound up like seeing each of these 3 guys within like several days of each other. And the funny thing is, I didn't even like most of them. There's only one that I kind of liked, and we'll talk more about that in next week's episode, but this is how it went down. So let's start with guy number 1. We're going to use everyone's real names for this. Cool, great. So there's Ryan. This guy Ryan, I knew him freshman year. Oh, by the way, my radiator is starting up again, or starting up, so you know the deal. It's gonna be making noises. So Ryan was this. Maybe if I have a photo of him, I'll put one in. But he was this kind of like scenestery looking guy. But he was Hispanic. He was Puerto Rican, like 100% Puerto Rican, which I thought was cool because like I was half Puerto Rican, and I was like, oh man, we're like vibing together. And I guess early on we used to hang out, and he did like me, but I didn't really return his feelings. He was cute, but I wasn't that into him. We would hang out a lot, but we never like hooked up. We never kissed or anything. We would take like fun photos together. Maybe I'll post one, and just be really silly, but and like talk about music we liked. But it wasn't until, I guess, like, he kind of slowly wore me down, where we started hanging out more and more. And we did eventually kiss and make out. But I was really not into it. My anxiety was starting to get higher at this point, because this, like, we're about to enter, like, a 6-month period, a 6 to 1 year period, where there was a bunch of guys that I honestly didn't really like, but they liked me. And a lot of this came from the whole Alex situation, where I just felt sort of defeated, and I just was like, well, okay, like, I guess I'll just go along with this. And it caused me so much anxiety. I'd have anxiety with them because I didn't want to be there, but I felt like I was obligated to be there, like cuddling with Ryan, and I didn't want to go further. I didn't want to hook up, but I felt like, well, I'm laying in bed with him, so I guess I have to, which was a terrible mentality to have. Any young girls watching this don't have that mentality. I just had a messed up mindset. So we wound up hooking up a bit, but he like wanted to date, and I really wasn't that into him. I just was hooking up with him because I felt like I needed to. While this was going on, and this was going on for like a few weeks or so, I went to a show. I love meeting my boys at shows with my friend, and there's this guy on stage. He was the lead singer. I forgot what his band was called, and his name was Seamus, and I thought he was really cute. So after the show, I like chatted with him. I like went backstage kind of and was like, oh, hey. And he was like changing his shirt. I'm like, you were great. And so we went next door and got like pizza or something. Or I don't know what we got to eat. I forgot. I just know we went to, he ate pizza and I watched him eat pizza. And we chatted and flirted and we exchanged phone numbers. And I was like, okay, cool. He's cute. And we talked a bit online, and I thought he was cool, but even, like, at that point, I just felt like going out, I was exciting to, like, meet someone, and I always felt like I wanted to meet someone new and, see where it went. But I think early on, too, I knew, like, that I wasn't that into Seamus either, but we did make plans to go on a date. So this is all leading up together to this week where all this madness happened. So we made plans to go on a date. And then again, while this was going on, Ryan was like, would hang out and sort of pursuing me, I guess. But I wasn't really that into it. While all this was happening, ready for a blast from the past? So from 2 videos ago, I talked about John. John was the guy who was friends or dorm mates with my friend Dan and Scott. Dan, who had a crush on me, and Scott, who was just like a platonic friend. And we like hooked up, almost had sex, but didn't. And then the next day or 2 days later, when I was back in their like dorm hanging out, he freaked out and thought I was like stalking him and was like, it was a one-time thing. I'm not into you. you're a bad person because this guy likes you and you're just flaunting stuff in his face. He freaked out and I was like, bye. I don't know if I blocked him or just ignored him. Somehow we ran into each other. I mean, we still lived on the same quad, which again, this is difficult to explain, but I don't think it's necessary for the story, but we lived on the same quad, so we'd see each other. Somehow he reached out and we like reconnected. It must have been like 4 months after his freak out. It was now, I want to say now it was my spring semester, my second semester of freshman year at this point. And he just started talking. He's like, I think he apologized. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I freaked out, like, drugs. I don't know if he blamed it on drugs or what he blamed it on. But he basically apologized, and I wasn't one to hold grudges, so I was like, yeah, it's fine. And somehow it got brought up that he's like, well, you're really cute. We should, like, go on dates. We should not dates, but, like, we should hang out. We should get to know each other. And so we started to get to know each other, which I guess did turn physical. We never had sex. I did have sex with Ryan and Seamus. I never had sex with John for some reason, but we hooked up, we hung out, we, like, started hanging out, and, like, I think we started hooking up or kissing or something, and he was, like, much nicer this time. It wasn't just a one-time thing. We would, like, see each other. He did a radio show. So all this is happening at the same time. I'm not official with anyone, at least not yet, I don't think. Maybe John started hinting, like, towards the end of all this, that we should, like, date, like, actually be boyfriend-girlfriend. But I was like, I don't know, because I still had Seamus going on. I had Ryan. This is how it went down. This is going to get a little scandalous here. So I think it was all within a week. And like I said, this wasn't me just being like, I'm going to just screw everyone and have a great time. I really didn't want to be hooking up with, like, 2 out of 3 of these guys, but I felt obligated. I think the first one was Ryan. I went over to his dorm, and we hadn't had sex yet, and he was like, let's have sex, and I was like, oh, I don't want to at all. And in retrospect, I should have just been like, no, I don't want to, but I had a very messed up way of thinking, and especially because of things that had happened previously, and I felt like, well, I owe him this at least. So I was like, all right. And he was on, like, really heavy antidepressants, which we're going to get a little graphic here, so get ready. I think for some of these medicines, it's hard to finish, which for girls who are, like, tired after a while, it can be a lot. He also was a big guy. He was a big guy, so kudos, Ryan. So we started having sex. It was so painful. And it was going on forever because, he was taking his time. And we had to stop. It was like, I don't know, 20 minutes in, 25 minutes. I don't know how long we were going at it, but I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I can't. This hurts too much. And then he tried having me take care of him. And then I was like, this is still going on too long. Like, I'm getting tired. So finally, he just kind of, like, took care of himself while I was there. And it was just not a great experience. And I was like, well, I'm going to go now. I'm pretty sure that was the last time we hooked up. And I didn't like him that much anyway. He was an okay friend, but I didn't have feelings for him. And I definitely didn't want to have sex with him. But again, I just felt obligated, which is so stupid. I think he was actually the 3rd person I ever had sex with. Fun fact. I think I've had sex with 10 people my whole life. We'll find out when I get to the end of this story, but he was the 3rd. So, I don't know. It might have been like 2 days later. I know, you're thinking you are such a skank, but there's nothing wrong as long as you're safe. And I was safe. I wasn't emotionally safe, but I was being physically safe. So then it was like 2 days later, and Shane's like, I'm coming for our date. I remember thinking, but I felt like I couldn't cancel. I should have canceled. So Shane and I go on our date 2 days later. We walk around a mall. It wasn't a great time. I was ready for it to be over. But he came back to my dorm room and was like, let's make out on your bed. I don't know how it happened. But then I was like, oh, we're going to have sex. It's our first date. I remember thinking, like, I don't want future dates. I don't know, like, I don't even want this. But once again, and this was like the dark period of my life where I really very much felt like I have to do this. And I felt like, well, he came out all this way. It was like a 20-minute drive. I was like, I guess I owe him this. So I really didn't want sex. And it was not good sex. So he was like, I think the fourth person I ever slept with. And it was just, yeah, it was not good. He wasn't as clean as he could have been. It was not fun. It was a little not clean. So I did not enjoy that at all. And when it was over, I was like, and he was making out, whatever, like kissing my neck. And when it was over, I just was like so happy to be like, okay, bye, see you around. And he was ready to go off wherever he had to go. Anyway, sorry this story's so long. We're going to lead to the cliffhanger now. Oh, so while all this was going on, by the way, so that happened. Now, John, the guy who freaked out at me previously, and we were starting to kind of see each other, and he would make hints about us being official. Now, I didn't feel, first of all, with none of these boys was there ever, like, we're exclusive, and, like, we're not seeing anyone. It was just sort of dating, hooking up, seeing where things went. For Seamus, that was, like, our first date. Ryan, I'm sure he liked me, but we never had a conversation about it just being us, and we weren't really dating. But with John, I felt, even if there ever was any guilt, I felt no guilt, because I knew for a fact that John was, like, hooking up with other girls. And there's this one girl who was, like, obsessed with him, and she'd show up at his radio show, like, drunk, or get him drunk, and then, like, try to hook up with him. And he even had, like, a hickey at one point, and I called him out, and he was like, oh, it's not what you think, or something. And I was like, but I didn't care. I wasn't, like, I probably was jealous on, like, I'm a jealous person level, but I didn't really care, because he and I weren't committed, and I had other boys going on. But he had this, there was, like, other stuff he was doing. So, literally, Seamus drives off. It's probably, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock now on, like, a Saturday or a Friday. Probably a Saturday. And I'm just like, oh, that was gross. And I'm so over all this. And then John calls me. Sorry, I'm like, who am I talking about? John calls me and is like, hey, like, let's hang out. Come over. And I was like, all right. Like, why not? John, of all the people I kind of liked the most, I clicked with the most. So I walk over again. We're in the same quad. So it's like a 3-minute walk to go to his dorm. And I show up. And I see him, and I'm not thinking anything, and he looks at me, and what did he call me? He either called me, and I don't think you should use the word, like, whore or slut lightly, but the situation, for some reason, like, it makes me laugh, or maybe he called me the B word. He might have called me a bitch, sorry, demonetized, but he looked at me, he, like, just stared at me and went, like, you're such a bitch, or like, oh, you're such a whore, or I forgot, which can be very triggering, but I was just like, what are you talking about? He didn't push me, but he was like, kind of like took me and was like, I'm not even going to talk to you. And I was like, what the hell? Like, there's no way he knows about, like, my date I just had with Seamus. And, like, there's no way he knows about Ryan. He was like, come on. So I go up to his dorm room, and he's, like, not roughhousing me. I didn't feel threatened. He just was, like, being pouty. And then I go in front of he's, like, kind of, like, not shoves me, but, like, puts me in front of the mirror. And I see I have this huge hickey that I got from Seamus earlier that day. And he looked, and John seems pretty, like, upset. Not, like, upset, but, like, kind of pissed. And I turned to him and go, ... So, we're going to leave it there. We'll continue next episode with the confrontation and where that conversation went, where things end up with John and I after he totally calls me out for having a hickey from another guy. Literally, that was a very, very strange week. But another long video, another video where I didn't eat. But I'm happy we got through this. This part of the story for me was the most confusing because there was a lot of overlap. And I feel like it portrays me in a very, like, loose light. Which I have no remorse over any of that. I think women, men alike, as long as they're being safe and honest with the people in their lives and their partners, it's totally okay to be promiscuous and to have fun. I wasn't being that promiscuous, but it was definitely the most wild week of my life. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I'm sorry I didn't eat. Let me know in the comments if I'm doing too much talking. If you actually like eating sounds, I can try to figure out a way to incorporate more eating and less talking. So I'd like to figure that out. So, so good. Yeah, so we're starting to move things. We're moving along, guys. So let me know what you thought. Leave your comments below. And I guess I'll see you all next week.